We can and hashtag 039. T seem to get the 200-page document that states that all but 18 countries should have restrictions on AI chips when you wake up this morning. Jensen Huang, the leading AI CEO, is traveling the globe discussing sovereign AI. Then there comes a document, which is once more a suggestion, that Carl essentially said, and quote, look, only 18 countries should be able to get this, and quote, that will bring down the entire complex. The fact that no one spoke to it makes it ridiculous. No one, no CEO was given the opportunity to even comment on it. An administration and hashtag 039's last-ditch effort that essentially threw a grenade into the entire complex? Even though it and hashtag 039's still very unknown, Jim, Don and hashtag 039, do you think that a lot of it won and hashtag 039, be undone, maybe under a new government or something else? I have a feeling it will all be. Yes, but it might be difficult for China. Given the risks that AI could pose in the wrong hands and the fact that we constantly want to be ahead of our competitors in terms of development, a lot of it is clearly developed with our defense, so to speak, in mind. Well, I believe that to be true. ISN and hashtag 039, that the fundamental reason behind their actions? Yes, but let and hashtag 039 say there are 120 countries that would desire it, and there are only 18 friendly nations. This implies that many nations other than China are currently left out. This will be seen frequently. It has been a pretty weak stock. I think Nvidia is fantastic, you know. When you add all of this together, Carl, you get some figures that indicate Apple will be less strong. Value has been superior outside of the United States. You would have been better off not placing an industry wager. Additionally, it would have been preferable if you hadn't and hashtag 039 shorted a lot of Nvidia. Therefore, it can be a lovely thing if value is maintained even when we aren't and hashtag 039 enjoying ourselves and everything else. In the quant process, does Nvidia make any appearance in your portfolio? It comes in as a possible stock to short or buy, which can help you understand quantitative management. I and hashtag 039 am not sure if we and hashtag 039 re-short or lengthy. Yes, since there are always so many positions available. Yes, I will be working in a lot of tiny positions. I therefore frequently make the joke that the only time I am aware of a particular position is when something really negative has occurred, though this rarely occurs. Or excellent. I and hashtag 039 am not even bothered by that, no. Or I occasionally cheat by looking up when I and hashtag 039 am on TV. However, I didn't and hashtag 039 check Nvidia. Although it appears to be of great quality, I would think it is pricey. Around 53 times earnings. Yes, but that ISN and hashtag 039 the entire procedure. For example, profitability, or your revenue. The amount of money you make is relevant, depending on the quantity of your equity or another scalar. We adore that. People tend to despise low prices in real bubbles. They disregard profitability since they only fund their aspirations for future success, which means we don and hashtag 039 get to experience those. But a year where the really cheap multiple stuff doesn't and hashtag 039 go well, but really profitable stuff does wonderfully, it can be a great year for us. Not necessarily, but I was going to add. Let and hashtag 039 send it to Christina Partsinovilos now for a look at Nvidia. As we stated at the beginning of the day, Christina, that stock is declining in the current session. You have the company and hashtag 039's most important clients. We are discussing Google, AWS, Microsoft, and Meta. According to reports, Nvidia and hashtag 039's most recent Black World chips are giving them some trouble. They and hashtag 039 re-battling malfunctions and overheating problems. Some may actually reduce their orders as a result of reporting. Considering that these cloud giants are also vying to construct their own AI supercomputers, the timing is not ideal. HSBC recently commented on a warning of supply issues. According to them, these problems might persist until early 2026, and they doubt that Nvidia will continue to surpass revenue projections by $2 billion per quarter, which raises concerns about sustainability. Then there and hashtag 039's an additional twist. Do you recall the recent regulations regarding AI chip exports from the Biden administration? Analysts at Wedbush, Bank of America, and Wells Fargo all believe it might not stay. Here and hashtag 039's. Due to the unusually lengthy 120-day comment process, Trump may decide to amend these restrictions after his term concludes. China currently accounts for 15% of Nvidia and hashtag 039's overall sales, although for the past few quarters, that percentage has somewhat decreased. They have stated that it is dropping, even though it is slightly higher than in Q2. Since Nvidia is dealing with a lot of issues at the moment, including supply chain issues, regulatory uncertainties, and technological difficulties, the stock is down 2.5%. Some Nvidia news. Nvidia shares were negatively impacted during the normal session by the European Union and hashtag 039's comments over the Biden administration and hashtag 039's additional restrictions on exporting AI chips, which Nvidia itself criticized earlier today. In a joint statement, the EU expressed worry over the US actions and stated that it is in the US and hashtag 039's economic and security interests for the EU to purchase cutting-edge AI chips from the US without restrictions. The expressed concerns with the Biden administration and looks forward to interacting productively with the upcoming Trump government. Worse, the US government opted to meddle in the semiconductor sector in a way that defeats so much of what Jensen Huang, the CEO of Nvidia, is trying to do. A set of regulations came out this weekend that put limits on the number of GPUs Nvidia can sell to over 18 friendly nations. We all understand the game, you see. Our goal is to prevent China from obtaining as many cutting-edge chips as possible. It and hashtag 039's alright. However, this 200-page bundle of regulations has come to represent the Biden administration and hashtag 039's strategy of portraying our companies as adversaries. Throughout the entire process, Nvidia has collaborated with the federal authorities. However, Jensen Huang has devoted a great deal of time to traveling the world and attempting to collaborate with all the friendly governments, not just the 18, in order to assist them in developing autonomous AI. He is aware of America and hashtag 039's immense power and its ability to dominate everything. But in order to prevent them from being absorbed by us, he wants to empower other countries. Unlike us during the Cold War, he does not want to be the ugly American who controls everything. It and hashtag 039's among the best projects he and hashtag 039's worked on, and the government has now essentially put a stop to it. IDON and hashtag 039's like the Chinese regime, you know, but the US needs allies. Long as the supreme representative of benevolence. In the end, this move is a fitting conclusion to an administration that appears to have economic interests at every turn. It is humiliating, short-sighted, and insulting. Unless, of course, it is clean energy. We and hashtag 039's added some of Josh Brown and hashtag 039's top stocks to the market list, but there hasn't and hashtag 039's been any movement in terms of fresh purchases or sales. We and hashtag 039's been emphasizing things for our viewers, and we do have some ownership around the desk, so Josh, I want to address the additions and subtractions as well. According to the updated list, 3M, Becton and Dickinson, and EOG are the top stocks available. Would you mind discussing those first? Yes, because EOG hasn't and hashtag 039's yet gained traction, let and hashtag 039's start with it. This is a stock that has been consolidating since early 2022 at about the same level. On the highest end of the spectrum, that is. It suddenly appeared on the list. And I believe that you can predict the breakout in this kind of scenario. I believe you should play this with a stop if you and hashtag 039 re a trader. If this stock breaks down, you should leave the name, but if it can break above 135, there ISN and hashtag 039 much resistance. I use the high teens, like 118 and 119, as my downside protection. To locate sellers at that level, you have to go back a few years. And it and hashtag 039, S in an industry that and hashtag 039, S only beginning to recover from terrible performance in comparison to the rest of the market. I own 3M, so that and hashtag 039, S the other one we ought to do. I have a long history with this stock. In situations like this, there has been a significant breakout. However, I remain there. Since September, it has been stabilizing, and I believe it is now prepared for its next significant surge. The RSI is reasonably calm, indicating that it is not overbought and has not yet made a move, and it is right at the higher end of that range, within a percentage or two of the 52-week high. Therefore, I believe that traders and investors should be aware of these two names. Alright, would you like to quickly comment on 3M Steph, the other you didn't and hashtag 039, T? Yes, I and hashtag 039, am referring to the incoming CEO. He has a strong track record of running the story and hashtag 039, S margins and has been there for around a minute. In the near future, they will have roughly 10 new products. That ought to benefit 2025 as well. However, keep an eye on the margins because I believe that and hashtag 039, S what will favorably impact the short term. Alright.